What'd you say? You're
Thank you for tuning into our after hours. We had a great episode today, and our after hours is where we kind of just chill out and relax and just kind of sitting on the couch with us. So thank you for tuning in. It's December. It's the holidays. Of course, I have a Christmas tree, but whatever you celebrate.
What is your guys' favorite part about the holidays? Christmas specifically.
Well, for me, it's making the kids feel, magical. You know what I mean? Like making them feel something that makes them not feel so overcumbered and, have them be dreamy.
That's what I was gonna say too. It's just like the decorations, everything being so beautiful, it being just such a special time. It just feels magical and like loving, more so than regular. So I'd say my favorite part is the feelings it gives you.
Actually, I gotta show you. So, end of Halloween, right? If you got your pumpkins lit, you set pumpkins around. And, if you have teenage kids, they'll probably just smash the pumpkins. But I'm like, well, I want to get creative. Like, what am I going to do with this pumpkin? So I took my pumpkin, painted a Christmas tree on it.
Oh my gosh, I love that.
So I can still hang around until it goes bad,
Yeah.
I feel like I see pumpkins in like old school Christmas artwork.
Right.
I don't know.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. I mean, it's a transition from the fall into the winter. So, but the Christmas tree we got a star on it that has LED lights that shoot out of it. So it's kind of cool.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah, the Christmas trees are going to be all digital. Like you can get the digital ornaments and stuff with the, says Merry Christmas going around the little bulb or whatever.
It's a hologram.
Yeah.
I kind of like those houses that have like the things shooting up against the side of the house.
Have you guys ever been out to Fargo Road?
I think
about that.
Yeah, but a long time ago.
Yeah, I don't think they did it last year because of COVID specifically. It was like the first time in a long time.
Doing it all together, like they sold it or something to someone.
Oh, maybe that's why. There's other areas throughout like the city where you go down the road and like when you start, it tells you what there's like a sign that tells you like what AM station to tune to, and then it gives you the specific music for that road you go down. And then a lot of the people's lights are synced to the actual songs and that's playing on your radio in your car to that AM station. So like the lights and stuff that the people have in front of their houses are like go to the music that you're listening to in your car that you turn to. It's a real cool experience.
That's so cool. Where is that?
A car that drives around all decorated with Christmas stuff.
Right.
Love that.
Great times. Well, it's interesting how much like Christmas has evolved because originally it was based off of a pagan holiday, Saturnalia. And I know it's controversial, but so Christmas is celebrated on December 25th, but technically if you read into the Bible, that wasn't actually when Jesus was born. He was born when the sheep go out to pasture, which is more like the fall, I believe, or spring. It's not in winter. Actually,
I wouldn't be surprised.
It lines up with Saturnalia.
The Bible's been translated so many times and so much has been taken out. I mean, think about like the Dead Sea Scrolls, the freaking all the different versions, like all these different things that have been taken out, all this information's that's been lost. Like the Library of Alexandria, like so much stuff that we don't know the truth.
Exactly. So back during like
mainstream anyways.
I don't know, for like Roman times or whatever, there was a lot of melting of religions and traditions so that everyone got along with each other that have very different backgrounds. So a lot of these different traditions, like the Yuletide log is from a pagan holiday. Originally, like Christmas trees, I think were palm trees, like in the very, very beginnings of the origins of using a tree. I think the mistletoe is pagan. There's certain things that were originally for more like nature, Wiccan-like type mythological religions that were brought in and mixed in with Christianity that kind of melded together and into what we have today. So there's a lot of traditions within it that weren't even originally like Christian type traditions that we celebrate.
Well, yeah, because think about it. It's like the whole pagan and witchy kind of stuff. Think about it, like shamans, like indigenous cultures, like this is what life was already. This was natural. What happened is they broke that off and villainized it from society, but there's probably pieces that remain that are very pagan, that are very nature-based, that are very what people would consider witchy, but it wasn't witchy then. It was just how life works, the knowledge that we have, the things that you do, you know, and it's nuts because it's like, it was so villainized, and now we have these separate things like this. It's controversial because, you know, certain things are considered pagan, but it's like, what the fuck? Like this was
if you
all
read
just
into
regular
Saturnalia,
shit.
like Saturnalia has a lot of different pagan things that you can see how it kind of melded into things we have today. Like, so they did like a lot of celebrations of masquerade types events. They had like orgies was a thing, which I think a lot of cults came from. Spirits being big into the holidays, drinking alcohol and stuff and having transformation. A lot of that stems from like pagan societies because we all know that drinking lots of spirits and stuff wasn't really a more Christian thing. Like if anything, they try to, you know, like wine's like accepted a lot, but you know, a lot of spirits and stuff like that and events that you see were more like centered towards some of the pagan holidays where they had cult like events. But I think in Saturnalia and that religion, they had like on December 25th, like giant orgies and things like that and masquerades and such.
That's crazy.
Yeah, a lot of those old churches in the Vatican are converted pagan temples, you know. As far as spirits, drinking the spirits, there was ergot in the wine back in the day, which is what's used in to ferment it to, you know, make something similar to LSD.
Right. It's kind of like a pagan type experience. To go on a journey.
You know what I was thinking too about what we were talking about earlier is it seems like, you know, that a long time ago, things started to divide people. Like everything was so divisive. Everyone was so divided. And it's like, they really didn't need to do much for everyone to be divided. I wonder now if this uptick in this chaos and all of these things coming up, you know, the pandemic, all these different cases, all these different, you know, civil rights, constitutional issues that we're seeing that are just so emotionally charged. I wonder if, because you know how we've talked about how the vibration of the earth is naturally increasing, and the higher vibration you get, you become more towards unity, where the anger, fear is more down here. This is a very long time ago where we were at, right? And we're rising up to these higher level emotions like compassion, empathy, understanding, oneness, right? The higher you get, we're naturally evolving and moving upwards. And I wonder if all of these different things going on are this desperate attempt to keep the status quo, to keep us divided, because once we're all united and have this sense of wake up to this sense of oneness, they wouldn't have that power that they have. You know what I mean?
Sounds like the work of Satan.
All right. My hope is that
sounds like the work of Satan.
Right, yeah.
Or maybe it's like a mysterious, like, what if all this divide is supposed to be to make us more united in the long run? maybe it's years down the road, you know?
And I've talked about that before too. Like, people talk about this, like extraterrestrials, right? Being the keepers of the earth, you know, and they say, you know, we're going through tests and stuff right now and things like that. And there's also the, what they call the Galactic Federation, right? And it's almost like on that higher level, there's that like controversy of like almost like the Galactic Federation oversees everything that happens here, allows what happens, right? And it's sort of like, it's like their job, like they oversee, they're the keepers of the earth as well, right? But they, I'm trying to figure out how to word it. So we're all manifestors. We all manifest our reality, right? And they say Earth is a school. We learn what we're manifesting. We're learning, you know, that as above, so below, as within, so without. We're learning these principles. And they say like this, the Galactic Federation is allowing these awful things to happen in order for us to grow and learn. So for our ultimate good, they say, and that's like a controversial thing, like even like among extraterrestrials, I guess you would say, the different races, that some agree, some don't, but ultimately that, because the matrix essentially that we have here, it's kind of like they say the moon, and there's this matrix around us, and the moon like projects, I don't know, something, the matrix. And what it does is it contains all of our manifestations in one space. So it's almost like a learning place where we're contained. Our manifestations can't go outward. We can't just easily leave and get our bullshit all over the galaxy, you know, but it's like we're contained here, and then we have to learn here how to manifest, how to get our shit straight, how to heal, how to get the inside right so that the outside is right. So there's that conspiracy as well, you know. So they do say, you know, a lot of this bad stuff only happens so that this good stuff can happen, you know, and that the ultimately goal is like we're getting pushed to work towards unity. You know what I mean?
It's kind of like raising a child. You let them fall off their bike, you let them this and that, because you know that in the long run, when they're older, they've learned a lesson. So you let them go through the hardship, because sadly, you have to see them go through the hardship to be stronger. But the thing that's worries me
literally
is
what it is. Like we're like the earth beings are like children. The extraterrestrials view us evolution wise, you know, I don't know on a soul level what, you know, where we would stand, because you can have an old soul and a young body, you know, but they essentially say we're like the children of the galaxy.
Well, I love the fascination of hoping that there
within the
is
spirit, or just within civilization in itself.
Just within like the species, our evolution as a species, as our biology wise, because they say that like we're carbon based, but they say what's happening is we're slowly becoming more crystalline based. Our DNA is literally changing.
Do you guys believe in the spirit?
What's that?
In the spirit beyond the body? Do you believe within a spirit, or the conscious
we
within
have a
it?
soul,
Or a soul?
Like consciousness?
Soul,
well,
consciousness, whatever.
If not for nothing, at the very base level, we are energy.
Now let's say that there were,
can't be destroyed, it only changes.
Or let's call it energy, or whatever that description is, you know. If there were like this aliens or Galactic Federation, or even angels, or like whatever it may be, are they void of a soul, you know? Is there this, I mean, this is a question that can't be answered, but is there like a barrier that doesn't allow the reincarnation to that? When can I be in the Galactic Federation?
Or is that what makes it unique?
So funny. It's really funny that you bring that up, because there is this, I can't remember his name. I just kind of started watching his stuff. Lately, I kind of got obsessed with watching like near-death experiences, and the similarities among all the different ones, and what the ideas behind. you know, what they all experienced and stuff. And it aligns a lot with the things that I've learned, right? But again, we're creating our reality. What we believe, what we expect becomes true, right? So, so it's just kind of funny that I'm like, oh, I'm learning more and more that, you know, this idea I had is validated and validated, but that's kind of how it's supposed to work, right? It's essentially how the manifestation process works. But there's this guy,
how far really separate is manifestation and intuition? Almost sounds like the same thing that both sides of what we're talking about, you know.
Well, manifesting is
more of a pole.
Yeah, but if you're manifesting things that are supposed to happen and you had the intuition to do so, like,
yeah, I think it goes hand in hand because manifestation is the attraction and the inspired action together. Like you have to take, but that's why a lot of in manifesting, they say, don't do things if you don't feel inspired to do it. And that sort of inspiration is like the intuition. I absolutely believe on something beyond this, even without the things I've learned, simply because of the insight that I've had into things, like the experiences I've told you guys that I've had, like, and I said on here too before, like all of a sudden knowing exactly where something was, no explanation, knowing that someone was playing a prank on me, hit it in a specific spot, knew where it was in a flash, knew what gender, like met the babies essentially before they came out of me and family members. You know what I mean? Literally face to face met them, knew who was having what gender, what baby was whose, sort of thing. So it's like those own experiences. And I think, and I always wonder, I'm like, why get a flash of it? You know what I mean? And then it goes away. Why not be, why aren't you psychic all the time? Why do we get these little flashes? And I think it's, we generally get these breadcrumbs, like right direction, keep going here. Yes, you're learning, sort of thing. Like it gives you the nudge to, your spirit's going to nudge you where you need to go, or your guides or whatever else. And the really interesting thing, and one of the near-death experiences, so the guy that I've been watching a lot lately, he said that there's literally in the DNA of humans, there is coding that spells God's, that what it spells in the DNA or symbolizes written within the DNA is God eternal within the body. It literally fucking says that in human DNA, right? And then so what
how does it say it?
Some sort of symbol symbolizing something that matches like the Torah or something like that, with the symbolism that means certain things, that and the codes, it's like within the DNA somehow. And he said, like, he's like, you know, they want to eventually do the same thing with extraterrestrial DNA to see if it says the same thing. That would answer some questions, right? Like, did God sign? Because they said, what do you do on a beautiful masterpiece when you create a piece of art? What do you do at the very end? You sign it. So it's, and then he said that there was a guy that there was a, you know, someone who had said, well, whenever you're ready for that, I have extraterrestrial DNA for you to test. And he's just like, we're not ready for that right now. You know what I mean? Like, we just aren't ready for that.
Like, we're so intelligent, but we're so not. Like, well, I think that the fascination with extraterrestrial life is the fact that the thought that we are the highest point of being boggles even our minds. The fact that we could possibly be the end all be all.
Well, what would it mean if the alien DNA didn't have that same symbol in it, right? Like the human, what does that mean at the end of the day?
That we're unique,
right?
Maybe we could have made the aliens at one point.
Right.
What if the alien DNA had our signature in the shit?
A lot of people say that these aliens in higher dimensions are future versions of ourselves that seeded us here. It's like so intricate and connected. But the interesting thing I wanted to say too is that in one of the near-death experiences that I watched, she said that she went to a specific place where people who cause their own death go, and there's certain spirits and souls there to help you understand things more, you know, to
cause your own death in the sense of ending your life, cause your own death.
causing your own death, whether it's by suicide or some other form that you kind of caused it, right? And
You'd have to knowingly cause it.
Right. Oh yeah, or knowingly or unknowingly, I think, because she had taken some medication prescribed to her and it caused her to almost die or to die.
Where would soldiers go? You know?
What's that?
Soldiers in
right.
war.
Well, I think it's just a place where, because they give you, so one of the near-death experiences, they said she took her, they taught her, essentially helped her understand some things, and they took her to, walked by a room, like allowed her to look into a room where there was a soul that had just died, surrounded by like angels and guides doing the life review, and they had done really, really terrible things on earth. And it essentially said that they were there helping this soul deal with
the trauma,
and face the things that they did on earth. Because think about it, once we shed our bodies and we're that higher being without all these limitations and fear and patterns and programming, that's within the body, right? And our soul comes in, it's written within the body, and then our soul experiences it that way because it's in the body. When we shed this body, we don't have those limitations anymore. But then as a soul, as a oneness, compassionate being, you have to look at your life review and face that you did that to these people. You did this on earth, and you have to deal with that.
What if us having a soul is because of our ignorance? And then once we are enlightened and no longer ignorant, we no longer have a soul, because then we send into angels, and angels don't have free will because they're all knowing.
Right. I think it's just, yeah, it's super tricky. But
I was trying to argue that question in a Bible study recently because, yeah, the angels, right?
Mm-hmm.
The ones that decided to go along with like the uprising. How the fuck did that even happen? Like,
right.
I'm just currently like getting into like this stuff and reading about it, but it really, like, you know, it doesn't confuse me. It's just these are the parts of the Bible that I'm interested about. I want to read this isn't in there, the story of like how that shit even happened. Like, when like did Lucifer start talking, whispering in everyone else's ear? You know what I'm saying? They're supposed to be acting upon the will of God. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. Satan doesn't exist at this point.
Right.
You know, there's no hell at this point. And then once there is hell, then demons work in, you know, for Satan, and then the angels work for God. I think we were talking about this in the last podcast, right? Do they have free will? Right.
Right. Right.
The demons and angels themselves, because I think
they
you
say
guys
at the end of the day that the dark
sometimes
still
they
works
work in unison, like, and make deals with each other on the side. So it's like, who the fuck are you working for?
It's like, almost like the main goal is growth and evolution at whatever way it needs to be done. It seems like, essentially, because they also say that the dark works for the light, because essentially what the dark does is a mirror to you. It's like the contrast to be able to see what you don't want, lead you back to the light, ultimately lead you back to yourself. The whole goal, they say, is growing, learning as much as you can, finding your way back to yourself. The whole goal is to know yourself. And in one of these near-death experiences, she says,
do you think angels, there's an equal amount of angels and an equal amount of demons? Because I think they gave numbers in the Bible specifically.
Maybe that's the yin and yang. Maybe you need that darkness to understand that there is light.
In the theory of the universe happening and the forever expanding from a small point, did God live outside of this? Or was he within the universe, with the angels within the heaven, expanding?
Right. It's
therefore,
like,
we all come from the same place. So thus somehow we're connected to demons and angels.
Well, that's essentially the oneness idea, right? So here's the interesting part, is that in that near-death experience, she said, you know, people who ultimately caused their own death, there were these certain souls, beings, enlightened beings that were there that you can learn from. Essentially, you go and you know, they help you and you learn. And she went up to, when everything's telepathic, they say in near-death experiences, you don't have to talk, you just know, you know. before you ask a question, it's answered, and all the information is just like accessible to you, you know? And so she goes up to this being, and it was so funny because she said that she had the question, so what is the right religion? What's the true religion? And it's like this being just sort of giggled, you know, like lovingly smiled. And then what they did is because everything is not so physical the way it is here. So it's like what they did is gave her a snapshot perspective of what they saw, what they experienced when she came up to ask them the question. So she was like in their mind experiencing herself to show them his perspective, or that soul's perspective, with what they know and what that was like for them, for asking that question. So it was so funny because she said, you know, I see myself asking the question, and I'm this being, I know all this, and essentially saying that he showed her that question, what's the true religion, is equivalent to if a child walked up to an adult and said, which cheese is the moon made out of?
Right.
And that's a kind of
it's almost like she's having a conversation with herself, because she asked the question, now she has the answer already, right, just from perspective. Yeah, it's almost like you're having a conversation with yourself, like in a dream.
Right. So it's like they telepathically showed her, you know, telepathically like answered that question. You know what I mean? Like, this is what, like, I'm showing you what you look like to be right now. It's like a child, you know, this is why I'm giggling at you, essentially. And she said too, she's like, I got that. I just had this sense that even if I were to say it, you know, is the moon made of cheese, that they would just be like, sure. You know, it's like, it's almost like it's whatever, you know, whatever you think it is, because we create our reality, right? Because
well, if we manifest, what if the afterlife is just whatever we perceived it to be? Like, what if all the Egyptians that were buried with their gold are in the afterlife with their gold, and all the Christians are with Jesus, and all the Buddhists are with Buddha, and everyone just ends up where they manifest themselves to end up?
They say that what you perceive.
It sucks for atheists, man.
Maybe the atheists are just really
atheists that had near-death experiences that said they felt like they were in hell, essentially, and they called on Jesus.
Were there near-death experiences where they didn't describe it like hell?
What's that?
Were there near-death experiences where they didn't describe it like they were in hell or near hell?
There were a ton of people who never believed in God or whatever else, and they had this heavenly experience, you know. And
but
then
those that believed in God first experienced the hell?
No, I don't think there was any sort of pattern, you know. There was one who was an atheist and experienced it and called on Jesus and was saved from that place, and shown a life review of why, you know, he had to experience that. And then there was a very, very godly woman who was very religious and ended up being there, all for sort of, it's almost like we put our own traps around us. We put our own cages on us. Like,
think about it, like, a lot of atheists, even though they're atheists, they always probably have that what if in the background. Like, what if I'm wrong and I go somewhere I'm not supposed to go? I'm sure that's,
well, you live in a world where
in their head.
Right. You live in a world where people are always talking about that, right? So subconsciously, the fact you might think,
I might go to hell because I didn't go.
Here's the interesting, the one guy that he said, they did the life review, and he's like, I'm an esteemed like psychologist, or I'm a, you know, PhD. It wasn't psychology, but like PhD, had all this successful, all these achievements, right? And he's like, it didn't matter there. None of that mattered. What mattered and what they had showed in the life review essentially was the times where, for example, when a student needed his support, and he was just cut and dry. He was a very factual, you know, cut dry, not emotional, not empathetic. Right. And it essentially, it was kind of like saying there are these times where you had a chance to be compassionate where someone needed your love, your kindness, and you didn't give it.
That's what
and
matters.
then the religious woman said that she was there because she wouldn't forget. She judged. She had people that she had never forgiven, and she had to forgive them, you know. And then this guy had to see how it's almost like he built his own, he was in this disgusting place of his own making, essentially.
Well, it makes sense. What happens after is all dependent on how you lived your life. And that's why I love this saying, it's about the journey, not the destination.
Well,
that's one of my favorite sayings.
And there was a woman too who said that she, when she was having the out of body experience, she was like in this plexiglass almost cube, like by herself, couldn't move. And then finally she's like, and time is, you can't perceive it. It felt like years I had been in there. I don't know. Or like, you know, you just, it's the time is so, she's like, so I'm going to get into a deep sleep, come back, you know, awake, and I couldn't get back to my body. I could see it, but I couldn't, you know, get out of this. It was just a void, you know. And then she came to this realization, maybe I've created this somehow. Maybe I've like put walls up around myself and created this. And then she's like, there was this huge like shatter. And then the spirit of her grandmother came to her, God came to her, like, and she just had to learn how she in her life had built up all these walls around her to keep her safe. But on a spiritual level, that's what she was doing to herself, essentially. So
those were the people that didn't have a near-death experience and didn't come back. Like, are they stuck experiencing that?
Or did they say like how did they get the near-death experience? Like what events led to, like what was like the reason why they had the experience? Like car accident or this?
Right. It was a ton of different things, like whether it was a health thing or car accident.
Because they say during these experiences, this chemical is released from your pineal gland. That's released when one may use dimethyltryptamine, or otherwise known as DMT, which is a complete out of body experience within.
Well, and the interesting thing is there was like what one of the ladies said that she was she was no longer in the hospital bed, not just out of body in the hospital bed, but she was in the car with her sister all of a sudden, who was on her way to the hospital, and she knew what she was in a coma or whatever for a while, but she was there. She saw what she typed to her on Facebook. She saw what she was wearing in the car, everything that she said, she was able to relay it back to her and verified like that's what happened, and she was there like in spirit form. So it's just all this interesting stuff about how many different perspectives and different experiences. And I think that we genuinely get experiences we need, because a lot of times they say, well, you're kind of in between, that's why you're going through like this sort of thing, you know, you're in an in-between, you're not fully dead, you're not, you know. And so they didn't make like that full transition at that time, but they were able to learn things that they needed to learn at that point, I guess. So I don't know. I
wonder if a near-death experience is similar to someone having like a trip, or, you know, the peyote, or, you know, when they go find their spirit animal in a lot of cultures, if that's the same kind of reckoning that people are supposed to have.
Right.
Yeah, my personal experience with psychedelics, you know, back in the day, that's what it was like every time. It was like a different level of something like that. Like something, there would be events and it'd be a real liberating spiritual experience from whatever was happening prior to it, you know. And I've heard it described like that to me by many other people that have partaken in those types of things.
Right. And I mean, it's hard to believe that there isn't life beyond life here, right? I mean, we know the energy isn't destroyed, it only changes. And how many people die every single day? We're born and we die, and we're born and we die, and we're born and we die. And people have memories of past lives, right? People have psychic abilities. People can see into the future. You know what I mean? Like all these different things that are going on. It's like you kind of, it's kind of like that proof that there's something beyond. We have a higher being beyond this body.
What I find fascinating is the lack of fascination with dreams. The fact that we dream and we go on like almost a different plane of existence within our perception, and that there's not more study done. There's not more, like, what if when we die, that is what happens? We're just stuck in our dream.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like, just the thought process that we shut down and
or
go
if you
somewhere
die
else.
sleeping, right? If you die in your sleep,
Right.
you could remain in that dream forever, maybe. Who knows? I try
And
to
that's not
take
that.
advantage of my dreams every night before I go to sleep. I think about what I want to dream about, whether it's like, you know, goals or trying to like do something with myself emotionally, you know, meeting people, fucking all sorts of really cool stuff. And
Well, a
it
lot
has
of people,
blown
Right,
my
the fact that we
mind
don't
how
remember
well
them.
it can work.
and there, a lot of people in their near-death experiences said that when they passed, when they were in this other realm, it felt more real than this does. That like this felt like a dream compared to that, where that felt real, like real, you know,
Interesting.
that this felt like a dream compared to that. So that was really interesting, where I was like, okay, like, but if you think about it,
Yeah,
there's this awareness and consciousness that we can't perceive or understand with the limitations of our body, that is probably out there once you're fully disconnected from that body.
It's like, how do you explain something that it's like somebody who's never heard anything before? How do you explain to them what listening to music is like? It's inconceivable.
Right. Exactly.
Without time, you're essentially eternal, right? There's no
well, yeah, and that's what they
decomposition of
said. That's
anything.
like everything is in this now moment. There isn't like time, but you're just, and this like, and I think it's like that, you know, this now moment can change, but that's why when they say, you know, people felt like they were in hell for eternity, but then it also changed, right? Like that situation changed, but everything is in the now moment, eternal. Do you know what I mean? So it's like interesting how it's like eternal. Does it just mean now? Everything is just now. And
Like, what if every moment is forever? And that's why we have memories and we still have feelings about things that were in the past. Every single moment is a forever moment.
Yeah, feelings
Right,
from
yeah.
the future as
Why
well.
you still love somebody from 20 years ago, and why you still remember somebody from 5 years ago, or what?
well,
The fact that we have memories can be
that brings in the vibration, and that brings in the vibration and the tuning in, because it's almost like everything is there in this now moment. It's all there, past, present, future, this experience, that feeling. It's all there. But what if you choose what you're tuning into, essentially? You know what I mean? I don't know. It gets so trippy, I think.
Wild.
To try and wrap your mind around. Sometimes I like,
as usual, we go forever on it.
yeah, it's like sometimes it's like I get this, you know, I want to learn and understand. And then sometimes I'm like, you know what, I'm gonna go watch Netflix and just be in ignorant bliss right now. Like I just don't even want to think about.
We're under the.
It's like chasing a ghost.
Right, because we just, how are you going to know? How are you going to know that people just give these near-death experiences? How do you know if that's true? You don't fucking know if that's true. You don't know if that was their dream.
We will never know all the answers until
you don't know
time.
if there really is a true religion, or if it's all true, or like you just don't know. We have no way to prove.
I have all of the fucking.
I love the saying. Right. All we know is that we don't know everything. That's all we know for sure.
Yep.
And
that's why this is kind of fake news.
Yeah, exactly.
The doctor.
No one knows anything for sure.
Yeah.
Right.
Wonder
we
and
don't have
wonder
answers
for sure.